And we're recording.
All right, call to order the Beverage Licensing Authority hearing for Wednesday, February 15th, 2023 at 3 p.m.
Thank you very much, Chair Califano. The first item on our agenda today is instructions for a virtual hearing, and I will share my screen and read the rules of decorum. Oh, Caitlin, if you can give me that permission, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board commission members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. More about this vision and the project's community engagement process can be found here at bouldercolorado.gov/services/productive-atmospheres. The following examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. If you are a member of the public, we do have an agenda item for general public comment for future BLA agenda items. That would be the time for you to raise your hand, and we will certainly let you know when that agenda item is called to order. Okay. Continuing with agenda item number 1 is the member roll call. And if you can, please speak your presence aloud. Member Absalom?
Member Absalom present.
Member Califano?
Member Califano present.
Member Roberts?
Member Roberts present.
And Member Wallace?
Member Wallace present.
Thank you very much. We have a quorum of 4 today with 4 members currently present, and we expect Member Carr to arrive within the hour. Thank you very much. The next item under agenda item number 1 is the approval of the Beverage Licensing Authority minutes from December 21st, 2022, and those would have been found as an exhibit sent earlier this week.
Do any of the members have any edits to those minutes?
I'm not seeing any.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Member Absalom make a motion to approve.
Member Califano will second. All in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Wallace, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Thank you very much. Motion is approved. Continuing is with agenda item number 1 is the approval of the Beverage Licensing Authority retreat summary from January 11th, 2023.
Any members have any edits to those minutes?
Member Absalom make a note here. I'll have to abstain. My wife was sick that day, but I did go over the summary, all the notes, and I will have to abstain from this because I was not present.
Thank you, Member Absalom. Is there a motion to approve? Member Califano would make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Member Wallace seconds.
All in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Wallace, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Member Absalom abstain.
Motion approves unanimously with a quorum of 3. Thank you very much. Continuing with agenda item number 1 is hearing agendas issues from the licensing clerk. And the only thing that we have in terms of current agenda items is the exhibit for the Rosetta Hall agenda item that was included in your exhibits earlier this week, which was an updated list of members for that would be trained. Continuing with agenda item number 2 is matters from the Boulder Police Department.
Hello,
Good afternoon, Officer Denning. Would you please state your name for the record?
there we are.
There we go.
I don't have anything. I'm not sure if, Kristen, are we going to have a discussion later on the matter we were talking about this week with Laurel, or are we doing that at the end? Or not at all?
I think maybe next month would be better if that's all right with you.
No, that's fine. No, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any questions for Officer Danik? Not seeing any. Well, that was quick. Well, thank you, Officer Danik.
Thank you, Officer Denny, for everything you do.
Thank you very much for your time. Continuing with agenda item number 3 is matters from the Responsible Association of Retailers, the RAR.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to have to make this short and sweet too. I'm at parent-teacher conferences. They got rescheduled on me. So sorry I wasn't here last week. I'm going through a little bit of a personal situation, but things are going great for RAR in Boulder. Alcohol seems to be doing well. We had a really big training for January, and we already have a lot of demand for February. I do believe I had to write a letter about 1 or 2 certificates. There was a hang up with my recertification, so you all might be getting a few letters from me stating certain members have had their folks trained by me, and then I graded those with the copies I have, and they passed. So if there's any problems with that, let me know. But they were trained. It was just tips not recertifying me, which was strange, and I got that all worked out. So we're good to go there. And then on top of that, we're going to do the fake ID training hopefully in April. I'm going to connect with Officer Dennig this month and try to find a good date that works for him and just really push that. And I know I'm delayed on the patron safety training stuff. That's just because there was a few holdups at the end of the year, but Mandy and I are finalizing that paperwork so you guys can look it over, and hopefully I will have that submitted to you by the end of next week so we can talk about it next month. And just to remind you, the patron safety training is the training where we're going to bring in folks from different organizations, nonprofits, just healthcare, covering everything from bar safety to over intoxication to suicide to sexual assault, date rape, those kind of things. So that will be coming to your way, to your desks, hopefully in the next week and a half, and I will send that to John, and hopefully John can get that out to all you guys. So that's it. Things are looking great. 2023 is going good.
Great. Thank you so much, Nathan. Do we have any questions for Mr. Dewey?
I believe member Absalom has his hand up.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dewey. I know parent-teacher conferences can be very, what's the word? Not taxing, but yes, important.
Yes.
What I wanted to bring to this group's attention is that there, to my knowledge, there is a change up in tips, the way that the whole tips organization is working, probably why you have problems getting recertified, where cards aren't getting set out until 7 to 8 weeks after the class.
Yeah, and that was a hang up from anybody who took a course from September through December. There was a hang up with them. So that is all being resolved. I've gotten all of those reprinted, and I actually sent out everything from September and October last week.
So I think just based on our city rules of 60 days, we should maybe talk about that at the end of this hearing, Chair Califano, about how a 7 to 8 week turnover on a card might affect a renewal. So just, I know that
yeah, not to interrupt, Mike, not to interrupt,
No,
but
please go
just so
ahead.
you know, like once they get into me, we send them in within 2 weeks if that latest. And I will have the results within 3 to 4 weeks. So you can always get the results from me. The physical cards just are what's hard to get out there.
Thank you for that clarification. I think that's important for city licensing.
Yeah, I can.
understand.
Yeah, I can get you digital copies, no problem. I've been doing that when I could. Like I said, there was just a really weird thing for the September, October dates. And then Mandy went on maternity leave. She had her baby, and so things just got really weird. And then I found out because of the turnover to the 360 training company, they're like, oh, we missed your recertification, but I retook it again for them, and everything is going good, dude. And everybody's getting the cards right now. I'm even sending it to people's personal addresses who've been waiting for months.
Thank you, Nathan. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Not seeing any. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Dewey.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be listening off and on, but I just wanted to get in here real quick. Thanks all.
Thank you very much. Continuing with agenda item number 4 is general public comments for future Beverage Licensing Authority hearings. If you're a member of the public and you wish to make public comment, please raise your hand within Zoom. You can find that in the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. If you could please raise your hand, and I will write your name down for general public comment. I currently do not see any hands raised. So Chair, if you are okay to continue on, I feel like we're okay to do so.
I am, but real quick insert, I just realized that I don't have the readings of the procedures in the packet for the upcoming agenda items.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I can let me get that. Thank you for letting me know, Chair, and I will gather those for you shortly.
Great, thank you.
Sure. And with the followings being renewals, I'll just send you the renewal version.
Somebody tell a joke.
So I got one for you. So you have Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, and Matthew McConaughey. They want to make a movie. DiCaprio says, "Oh, I'll act." Damon says, "Oh, I just started directing. I'll direct." And McConaughey says, "All right, all right, all right." That's a Days Confused reference for you.
That was great.
I have one. Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
Answer here, because he was outstanding in his field.
My wife says that I have 2 faults. One is it that I go to bed too early, and the second one, I can't remember. Oh no, the first I got it wrong. The first one is I don't listen, and the second one is I can't remember. Oh God, I stopped now.
Well, I have 3-year-olds, so mine's for maybe that age level, but how do you make a tissue dance? You put a boogie in it. It's really good with like the 3 and 4-year-olds.
It's always a classic. And Chair, I did send that to you in PDF form. And to end it off, I have a joke. Why is the chicken the funniest animal? Because? There you go.
All right, we're good to move forward if you want to read the next agenda item into the
Awesome.
record.
Thank you very much. Continuing with agenda item number 5 is a public hearing and consideration of an application filed on December 15th, 2022 from Frog and Toad LLC, doing business as Hungry Toad, 2543 Broadway, Boulder, Colorado, 80304. Bonnie Rada, 100% owner and registered manager, with a business mailing address of 2010 Alpine Drive, Boulder, Colorado, 80304 for renewal of a hotel restaurant type liquor license.
let's, can we get them sworn in?
Certainly. Will for Frog and Toad LLC, will you be represented by an attorney today?
No.
No. Okay, thank you very much. If I could please have you both state your name, spell your name, and say your home address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Rada. You want me to spell it as well?
Yes, please. Thank you.
B-O-N-I-E. Last name is Rada, R-A-D-A. And my home address is 2010 Alpine Drive. And that's Boulder, 80304.
Thank you very much. And you, sir?
Hansen Rada, Hansen, last name Rada, R-A-D-A, home address, same 2010 Alpine Drive, Boulder, Colorado, 80304.
I changed the locks, but he keeps coming home.
Thank you very much. Do you anticipate anyone else besides the two of you to testify today?
No.
Okay. Would you please both raise your right hands? And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the Beverage Licensing Authority is true?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you also swear or affirm that you or your employees have posted the poster at the premises for at least 10 days prior to today's hearing?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Great. And since you're not represented by counsel, I'm going to go ahead and read the proceedings into the record. This is a public hearing before the Beverage Licensing Authority of the City of Boulder to determine whether or not the application of applicant, let's see here, Frog and Toad LLC, doing business as Hungry Toad, for a renewal of a hotel restaurant liquor license, shall be granted. This hearing is conducted pursuant to the laws of the state of Colorado and the rules of the Beverage Licensing Authority of the City of Boulder. The purpose of this hearing is to receive information, data, and testimony by interested parties in order to enable this authority to make the findings and to reach the conclusions required to be made by state law as to whether or not this license shall be renewed. Interested parties are the applicant, residents of the neighborhood affected by the license as previously determined by the authority, and the owners and managers of a business located within the neighborhood. This hearing shall be limited to question of whether or not there is good cause not to renew the license as set forth in the notice. Hearing, let's see here. A record is being made of these proceedings. Those who desire to be heard shall identify themselves by stating their name, spelling their last name, and stating their pertinent address. They shall also be sworn in by the board secretary. Is there any conflict of interest or ex parte communication from any of the board members? Member Califano, no.
Member Absalom, no.
Member Wallace, no.
Member Roberts, no.
And is there anyone here at this hearing that wishes to speak to this agenda item? If you could raise your hand. Not seeing any. All right. You may proceed if you just want to explain to us a little bit about the reasoning behind the late filed of the application.
Sure. So maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't. We took over the Hungry Toad back in November of 2021. Terry Morton, the old owner of it, had ran the establishment for 31 years. We've been going to the Hungry Toad for 25 years. And we made the fateful mistake of saying to him over and over again that if you ever want to retire, we would take it over for you because we didn't want it to become a bank. And it's that moment when the dog catches the garbage truck when he called. So with that in light, we hired a liquor license attorney. We hired a restaurant management company. And when we acquired or transferred the liquor license back in November of 2021, we asked both of them as to what the process would be for renewal.
You should maybe add that we are not restaurateurs by
Yes.
trade.
We're passionate about pubs and wanted to make sure it didn't go away. So in response to that, both the restaurant management company and the liquor license attorney said, well, sometime in late summer, you're going to get a package of information in the mail and it'll have everything that you need to do. Fast forward to August, there were a flurry of emails back and forth. And I assume it was a busy, stressful time for everybody involved because that was the modification period for the dining, outdoor dining things that were being done. We hadn't seen any sort of information in regards to the renewal. We contacted the liquor license attorney, and he again stated, don't worry, you'll get something in the mail, but why don't you go on the portal and just check it out and see what's going on there? Maybe there's some information. We went on to the portal that the city of Boulder provides, and I noticed that there was a hold on the liquor license and a hold on the dining program. So we submitted an email to staff, and again, I want to make it very clear, everybody was extremely busy, and just said, hey, could we maybe get an explanation around the hold? We're not sure what's going on. Maybe that got lost in the shuffle, but we didn't get a response. And inevitably what happened after that was probably the squeaky wheel. And what I mean by that is we got involved with making some changes to the toad, and we forgot. And it wasn't until we saw the liquor license on the wall and I realized the date was not good that we immediately contacted our liquor license, got the packet of information online, filled out everything, paid the fines, and submitted it immediately. And thus we find ourselves here. I would make it clear that the ultimate responsibility belongs to us to renew it. And I can promise you that it will not happen again. It's an expensive mistake. But I thought it was important to kind of give some context to how it all went down.
Great, thank you for that. I just had a quick question. What new procedures or processes have you implemented since this to not have this occur again?
Well, we've put it into our Google Calendar. We've also taken the email that I've since found with all the information that was in our spam folder and made it not spam. So hopefully that won't be an issue. And I can promise you it is now top of mind.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions from the board members? Member Absalom?
Yeah, I just had a question. So the restaurant management group that you hired, what is their role right now in operating your licensed establishment?
No longer has a role.
So now this all falls on you as operators to follow up with these administrative obligations when it comes to renewing your license?
Correct.
Okay, well, it sounds like you understand the levity of this. It's very important that you're on it. And then do you have, in terms of the license manager of this location, is that you?
That would be Bonnie and our general manager.
Okay. Is she also someone who is aware of this?
Yes. Yes, our GM, who is on site most days, is aware of it, and I'm aware of it as well.
And your GM is also aware of the mandate to have people tips trained within 60 days of their hire date?
100%. To speak to what we overheard with Nathan, we did all employees on January 2nd on-site training, and we have not received any of our cards yet. We were told 3 to 4 weeks, and we have yet to get any of them.
Yeah, I'm seeing in your packet you do have some up-to-date cards here for sure. But yeah, it sounds like you have a plan here. Just keep following through and make sure that people actually operating the licensed establishment are aware of the obligation that they have to follow these rules with the city of Boulder and the Beverage License Authority.
Great. Any other questions from the board? Not seeing any. All right, at this point, we will close for deliberation. Is there a motion?
I would move to renew the license.
Is there a second? Member Califano would second. All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Wallace, aye. Sorry, Leah.
I'm just gonna go last every time. Member Roberts, aye.
All right, renewal approved.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Come by the pub.
Thank you very
So
much
I
for your
guess the
time.
follow-up would be then, so we will receive this in the mail. What would be the next step as to what would be the next step?
Certainly. So next steps would be now that this the renewal has been approved by the Beverage Licensing Authority. Tomorrow, I'll be sending this application to the state for renewal. And once we receive the information back from the state with their renewal license, I'll be sending that both the city license as well as the state license to you via email with as attachments. And just keep in mind, we no longer mail packets, so everything is by email. Hence why, like you mentioned, it's in your spam folder. And I'm so glad you were able to make adjustments so it won't be in there in the future. But just keep an eye out for information from our team with additional information for you.
Oh, thank you, John. And we can take the poster down out of the window, correct?
Oh, certainly, yes.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, continuing with agenda item number 6, that is a public hearing and consideration of an application filed on December 20th, 2022 from Rosetta LLC, doing business as Rosetta Hall, 1109 Walnut Street, Boulder, Colorado, 80302, Ralph Green, member, and Donovan Green, member, and Sarah P. Beckwith, registered manager, with a premise mailing address for a renewal of a hotel restaurant type liquor license. Okay. And Council Vecchio, if you could please, I would love to be able to record your appearance. And will anybody else besides yourself be present from Rosetta Hall to sworn in?
Yes, good afternoon.
716647.
Veronica Vecchio appearing on behalf of Rosetta Hall, and yes, Sarah Beckwith is present to testify.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's see here. Let me just write this information down. And he said it's Sarah P. Beckwith is here as well.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Well, she was here.
I am here.
Oh,
Yes,
you
I
are
see.
here.
I see.
Okay.
Yes, you're right here. Thank you.
And Ms. Vecchio, would you mind recording your attorney license number for the
Yes.
record?
Yes, Veronica Vecchio, bar number 37225, Laszlo Law, representing Rosetta Hall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Ms. Vecchio, do you anticipate anyone other than Ms. Beckwith to appear in testimony for today?
No.
Okay. And Ms. Beckwith, if you could please state your name, spell your name, and say your home address for the record.
Sure. My name is Sarah Beckwith, SarahBeckwith, and my home address is 10 Ponderosa Place, Broomfield, Colorado, 80020.
Thank you. And if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the Beverage Licensing Authority is true?
I do.
And then do you also swear or affirm that you or your employees have posted the poster at the premises for the at least 10 days prior to today's hearing?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Beckwith, since you're represented by counsel, I'd ask if you'd be willing to waive the reading of the procedures into the record.
Yes.
Great. And is there any ex parte communication or conflict of interest from any of the board members? Member Califano, no.
Member Absalom, yes, I'm going to abstain from weighing in on this. I had a history with one of the members of Rosetta Hall that's listed, I believe, here. I conferred with City Council, Ms. Witt, and I will be recusing myself. I will mute my video during this agenda item.
Any of the other board members? Can you guys state that just so it's on the
Member
record?
Roberts, no.
Steve? Can you just verbally state you're muted?
No, I have no. What you call it?
Conflicts of interest.
It's just it.
All right. And is there anyone here that wishes to speak to this agenda item from the public? You could raise your hand. Not seeing anyone. All right, Ms. Vecchio, you may proceed.
Thank you. And as I stated before, my name is Veronica Vecchio, attorney from Laszlo Law, representing Rosetta Hall for their application to renew their liquor license located at 1109 Walnut Street. And we have Ms. Beckwith present and sworn in, ready to testify. Ms. Beckwith, what is your relationship to Rosetta Hall?
I'm the Director of Operations at Rosetta.
And can you explain what you do in that position and how long you've been in that position?
I have been in this position since the beginning of November of 2022. I oversee all of the operations, the food, beverage, and entertainment components at Rosetta Hall.
And prior to that position, were you also employed by Rosetta Hall?
Yes, I started with Rosetta Hall in July of 2022 as the culinary director.
And are you over 21 years of age?
I am.
And if you could explain to the panel exactly what Rosetta Hall is and how it sort of functions.
Sure. Rosetta is a food hall. We have 8 individual food stalls that each have their own menu. And then we also have 2 bars, a main bar inside and a rooftop bar that opens seasonally. And then we have a coffee shop as well. And the coffee shop is open year round in the mornings.
Okay. And what are your days and hours of operation sort of for each coffee shop versus bar?
The coffee shop opens daily at 8 a.m. Until 3 p.m. The food stalls open daily at 11 a.m. until 9:45. And the bar opens at 11 a.m. daily and closes typically at as late as 12:45 if business is if it makes sense. Otherwise, we'll close before 12:45, kind of business depending.
And what is your general experience in the restaurant industry?
I've been in restaurants for the last 18 years, primarily in the food service department. However, I have owned and operated my own restaurant as well as liquor shop for several years prior to starting at Rosetta.
Great. And this hearing is in regards to the renewal of Rosetta Hall's liquor license. Your application was timely filed, but was lacking proof of training. What have you done to correct the problem of 10 employees missing proof with the application that they were trained?
So of those 10 employees, 2 of them were simply going by their middle names as opposed to their first names. So it wasn't clear on the roster and the tips cards that were submitted that those 2 people did have training. The remaining 8 employees, one of them was one of those few that was waiting on their tips card from Nathan Dewey's class. But the other 1, 2, 3 of them, 4 of them, excuse me, I simply missed that in submitting. I think I had a total of about 30 people I submitted, and I missed 3 of them. I have since submitted those cards. And then there were 3 other people that hadn't been trained at the time of submitting the application. And those 3 have now all completed and approved training.
Okay. And to clarify for the panel, there were some that you had originally submitted who had engaged in e-tips training. What have you done to make sure that they received live training?
Sure. Yes, there were 4 tip certificates that were submitted that were each tips. Of those 4, 3 of those employees have now taken the certified class, and the 4th is no longer with us because he did not want to take the appropriate class.
Okay. So he's been terminated?
He has.
Okay. And what do you plan on doing to avoid a problem in the future with renewing the license?
In terms of tips training, we've done a few things. We have changed the way that we've basically added another parameter when we hire anyone who's going to be involved in the sale or service of liquor, that we require upon their onboarding them to provide us with their tips card. And if they cannot, because they don't have tips training, we require them to sign up at that same point in time. We've also started, we have a database where we store all of our employees' information, and that database, we have put in 2 types of notifications. The first notifies us 30 days after their first day of employment to verify that we do have a tips card on file or they have taken an approved class. And the second notification tells us about 2 months out before their current tips card expires, so that we can follow up with them and make sure that they have plans to take to get recertified.
And what do you have in place internally in terms of training outside of requiring employees to engage in tips training? What internal procedures do you have?
We do a monthly employee staff training, and that training rotates between, sometimes it's beverage focused, sometimes it's food focused. This month was food focused on food handler certification. Next month, we're going to be doing it focused on beverage service, where we will be addressing internally, and our GM Quentin Bennett will be leading this, who has many, many years of experience behind the bar and in serving liquor. But he will be giving just some more kind of tips and training on how to properly ID, identify when people have been overserved or intoxicated, and then how to address those issues when they do arise.
And what are your current policies if an employee violates any of your procedures for preventing minors from being served?
Sure. As far as preventing minors, we have a very good kind of training, and we have a lot of people already in place that are very good at both asking for and checking IDs, as well as spotting IDs that are either fake or impersonating another person. All of those IDs that our team confiscates, we submit to the local police office, and we submit, anywhere from 2 to 6 a week.
Okay. I don't have any further questions for this witness, and I tender her to the panel.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Not seeing any. Did you have anything else you wanted to present, Ms. Vecchio?
I have nothing further, and just conclude by stating that Rosetta Hall's application for the renewal of its liquor license is now in order, and we have presented clear testimony in terms of what the issues were and how she's resolved them, and that in the future these issues will not arise. So we do request a renewal of the license.
Great, thank you. At this point, we'll close for deliberation. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve the renewal of the license.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Great. All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Wallace, aye.
Member Absalom, abstain.
Member Roberts, aye.
All right, renewal has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Continuing with agenda item number 7 is a public hearing and consideration of an application filed on January 20th, 2023 from DeRossi Boulder LLC, excuse me, doing business as Avant Garden Bistro, 1002 Walnut Street, Suite 102, Boulder, Colorado, 80302. Ravi Lalchandani, owner and registered manager, with a business mailing address of 445 East 6th Street, New York, 1009, for renewal of a hotel restaurant type liquor license. And Council Vecchio, I believe you will also be representing this client.
That's correct. Again, for the record, Veronica Vecchio from Laszlo Law, representing DeRossi Boulder LLC, doing business as Avant Garden Bistro, bar number 37225.
Thank you very much. And will anyone else besides yourself be present to provide testimony?
Yes, I have Ravi DeRossi is present, and he's ready to testify. And it's actually Lanchinati.
Lalchandani, yeah.
Lanchandani, sorry.
Yeah. AKA DeRossi.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you
If
very
you want
much.
to turn on, I'm trying to turn on my camera, but it says you have to approve it.
Hold on just a moment.
Okay. Start my video. There we go.
There we go. Thank you very much. Sir, if you could please state your name, spell your name, and say your home address for the record, please.
First name Ravi, R-A-V as in Victor, I. Last name L-A-L-C-H-A-N-D as in David, A-N-I.
And your home address?
445 East 6th Street, apartment 1, New York, New York, 10009.
Thank you very much. If you could please raise your right hand.
Yep.
And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the Beverage Licensing Authority is true?
Yes.
Thank you. And do you swear or affirm that you or your employees have posted the poster at the premises for at least 10 days prior to today's hearing?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and since you're represented by counsel, would you be willing to waive the readings of the procedures into the record?
Yes.
Great. And is there any ex parte communication or conflict of interest from any of the board members? Member Califano, no?
Member Absalom, no.
Member Wallace, no.
Member Roberts, no.
Great. And is there anyone present in this meeting that wishes to speak to this agenda item from the general public? Not seeing any. All right, Ms. Vecchio, you may proceed.
Thank you. And we're present here today, as I mentioned earlier, in regards to the renewal of the liquor license for Avant Garden Bistro. And today I do have my witness present. And Ravi, if you could please state your current age. Are you over 21?
Yes. 48. Almost 50. I feel like I'm going on 60.
And what is your relationship to DeRossi Boulder LLC?
I am the owner.
Okay. And what is your experience in the restaurant industry?
It's long. I've been doing it for about 20 years. I hold 15 liquor licenses here in New York City, 2 in LA, DC, Savannah, and now Boulder.
Okay. And why in this case, for this particular location, why did the renewal application get submitted late?
We actually haven't opened to the public yet. We are waiting on, we signed this lease 2 years ago. We finished our work on the inside. The landlord has certain responsibilities that he has to fulfill before we can, and one of those is actually, it was installing our front door and then getting our new C of O, because if you guys remember, the Mediterranean used to be, it had the big space originally, and then 10 years or so ago, they took the smaller space next door. We are just occupying the smaller space to the west. And so in splitting the spaces, there's a new C of O involved, and it is the landlord's job, according to our lease, to acquire this for us. And he has been taking a very long time to acquire this. They just finished installing our door a couple months ago. Now we're waiting on the C of O, and without the C of O, we can't actually get the liquor license. So sorry, to make a long story short, since we didn't have the liquor license, I didn't realize, to my fault, that I needed to renew it. And the space has just been sitting vacant because we finished our work almost a year ago. It's just been sitting there. So I didn't have anybody there receiving mail, because there's just no mail coming for us. At least I, again, to my fault, didn't realize that this renewal was coming in the mail. So yes, does that make sense?
Yes. So in essence, is the space still under construction or is it completed?
No, we're done with our work. There's minor things here and there to do, but we are just waiting on this new C of O. The landlord finished his construction for the new door, if that's what you mean. Now the city, or I'm not sure if it's the city or the state, has to give us the new C of O, and then we will submit that to the BLA, and then we will get the liquor license.
Okay. And so what have you done since you've learned that you need to renew the license?
Immediately contacted you guys and filed for the renewal.
Okay. And how will you avoid a problem like this in the future?
Well, we will hopefully we'll be open next year at this time, and we will obviously have people on site, but so we'll have people on site getting the mail, but we have a lot of liquor licenses, and this is not an issue we've ever had. And again, to my fault, because we never got the license the first time, I did not realize this. So we have a calendar of alerts that all this stuff goes into, and we usually, if in fact never miss this kind of stuff. A liquor license is obviously one of the most important things that we need in order to operate a successful business. So it's just not standard operating procedure for us to miss something as important as this.
And so when do you plan to open?
That remains to be seen. Now that the door is finished, there's a light inspection that the city has to do for the building to make sure all the lights are, because I guess there's new city codes for the types of lights that could be on the outside of the buildings, and this is for the whole building, not just our space. Once that is approved, then we will get the new CFO. So I've been told for several months now it's going to be any day now. In fact, I've been told that for a year it's going to be any day now. So I can only hope that it's going to happen in the next few months, and then at which point we will start to hire our staff and go through the training and get open. So from the day that we get the CFO, getting the DOH inspection and the actual liquor license, that I assume takes 2 months, and then we'll open a month or two after that. So if the CFO was to come tomorrow, I would say we would be open in 4 months.
Okay. And how many employees do you expect to have once you're fully open?
Roughly 35 plus.
And have you put together a plan to have all of those employees trained?
We haven't put the plan yet together because we've sort of just been waiting on this, but we just recently opened a restaurant in LA, which has similar protocols and procedures that you have to go through in order to, have everybody tips trained. So in New York, they don't require the same, but we have one bar in LA, which we went through the same thing. And now we just opened a restaurant. So we'll probably take that, modify it for Boulder policy and use it.
Okay. And do you plan on having employees trained within 30 days of opening or 30 days of hire date?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And you plan on having them trained at a live tips session. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I think you've testified to the posting of the premises, so I have nothing further for this witness, and tender him to the panel for questioning.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the board members? Not seeing any. All right, Ms. Vecchio, did you have anything else you wanted to present?
Nothing further, just submit to the panel that we have presented a complete application and credible testimony in regards to why the application was late. And we do request the renewal of the liquor license for Avant Garden Bistro.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'll close for deliberation. Is there a discussion, a motion?
I would move to renew the license.
Member
Absalom will second the motion.
All right, all in favor say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Wallace, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Renewal approved. Thank you.
Mr. Gerasi, I have to
Yeah.
say to you, I'm hoping you're not being led around, because the delays that you're being told about for the city of Boulder permitting process is one of the things the city of Boulder does better than most other jurisdictions in Colorado. So I would check that out.
You mean with the department, with regards to the Department of Buildings?
Yeah, the planning department.
Yeah, no, I fully am aware that this is the landlord's just laziness and unorganized practices, and I don't think this is a city related thing by any means. It's something we're trying to get through to the landlord, but it just seems to be not priority for him. There's only so much I could do here with him, but
I just want to make sure he wasn't telling you one thing, and in fact that wasn't the case, because in my personal experience with getting permits for something like this, and other permits of the city of Boulder. It's one of the things the city of Boulder does better than most other Colorado jurisdictions.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me know, and I'm 100% aware of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, continuing with agenda item number 8 is the Beverage Licensing Authority retreat follow-up discussion.
Thanks, John. And I just want to welcome Member Carr to the meeting as well. Thanks for joining us. So we had a really great discussion at the BLA retreat in January, and the next step is to formally vote on some of the proposed changes that were discussed. Member Epsilon, I know you weren't present for the retreat, but if you would like to, you're still welcome to participate in this conversation and this vote, since the materials were included in the packet. But if you don't feel comfortable, that is fine as well. I just wanted to invite you to the discussion if you'd like to join.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to actually say something. I'd like to defer to Ms. Witt, if I do have to add anything to this. I read through everything in the pack. I'm so sorry I couldn't be at that. I really wanted to be there, and unfortunately I couldn't. So anything that I feel I have a couple of thoughts on some issues, but I'll let the authority members who are present to really guide the conversation.
I think though that Mike, the everything that we went through, and anyone can correct me if they want, because I'm wrong all the time. But I think is pretty clearly and well stated in the materials that we received. And so if you've gone through those, you've got a good handle on what we did.
Great, thank you. So the first agenda item is 8A, and these are updates to the BLA rules of procedure. So in your packet, you have the red line version of the proposed changes. I believe the only thing that has changed since the retreat is some language around providing interpreters for licensees to participate in hearings. So we had some discussions internally at the city, and we would like to provide an option for licensees to have interpreters. This will be paid for by the city if it's something that they request, and we have resources to provide interpreters in many different languages. So I think that's absolutely something that we can do to provide to support licensees. So Laurel did include some new language for that, but everything else should be pretty consistent with what we discussed at the retreat. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about those red lines?
I did. What was the discussion around providing the interpreter for free?
We feel like from an equity perspective, we feel like it's appropriate for the city to cover that expense for licensees. We don't want licensees to be in a position where they feel like they can't afford to provide an interpreter and are put at a disadvantage at their hearing, particularly for show cause hearings. So that was the reasoning behind it. And when we looked into the expense, it's really not a significant expense for the city, and it happens so infrequently that we felt like it was something that we could help cover the cost of.
You weren't concerned that, in fact, that we might be liable for mistranslating something and getting something wrong?
Laurel, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually work with an outside organization that brings forward interpreters that are, especially for show cause, court certified. So they are certified interpreters versus if we just said you can bring an interpreter, then it could be a friend or something that could misinterpret something. So this is a way to protect the city a little bit more. We've done it in other areas, so we're not as concerned about the liability because the contract with this particular outside organization that gets the interpreters for us includes liability terms and things. So we would be protected as the city if something were to be misinterpreted. But it's less likely because these are more certified interpreters than perhaps a friend of a licensee.
Could always fall back on sovereign immunity as well.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? All right, then we can go ahead and have a formal vote on these. John, do you mind leading that for us?
Certainly. We can have let me get that documentation here. Is there a motion to approve the redlined documents for the updates to the rules of procedure?
Member Califano would make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Member Carr will make a second that motion.
Thank you. And may we have a roll call vote, please? Member Absalom?
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr?
Member Carr, aye.
Member Califano?
Member Califano, aye.
Member Roberts?
Member Roberts, aye.
And Member Wallace?
Member Wallace, aye.
Thank you very much. Motion approves 5-0.
And just really quickly, as a quick reminder, this has to go through city council by resolution for approval. So they're not official until they're official from city council.
Thank you for that very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is agenda item 8B, which are proposed fee changes to special events. So as we discussed at the retreat, staff is proposing that we increase the special event fee from $50 for events under 250 people to a flat rate of $100 per event, regardless of the size of the event. I think we had a great conversation about this at the retreat, but if anyone has any follow-up questions or comments, I would welcome those. And if not, we can go ahead and move to a formal vote. Member Roberts, did you have something?
I was gonna ask what the final conclusion was. Did we just decide to put everything at 100? Even for like events under 25 people, like a small business event?
We did.
I remember discussing it. I just couldn't remember what we all voted on. Okay.
But if that's something you'd like to revisit, we can absolutely open up that conversation, especially now that we have another BLA member present.
I don't necessarily think so unless Mike wants to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I read the minutes and I think even $50 to $100 is a nominal change based on the type of events we're talking about here. I think it's important that the city gets that, piece of funding to host an event because there are additional things that can happen around an event. And that's, to me, $100, the taking it to 50 to 100 is very nominal. And I would definitely approve that personally.
Yeah, it was the detail was like if it was going to be just a very small event, but I'm comfortable moving forward. I just needed to.
So what? Just while we're talking about it, remember Robert's like, what is a small event versus a large event in terms of people? If you're having a small licensed event for alcohol in terms of the amount of people, how does that really affect the enforcement component and what happens around the Colorado State Liquor Code doesn't really change, in my opinion, at least, in terms of the amount of people that are there and what could happen. I think $100 across the board makes sense to me, no matter what the size of the event.
And I'm always in favor of cost recovery.
And I believe I came to that conclusion as well. And I'm there again. I just needed a little remembering.
Yeah, the clarity. No, thank you so much. I'm sorry I wasn't there to have that discussion with you in person, but I'm in full agreement with that.
Points.
Yeah, I think ultimately when we hold events in this city, you're gonna have there could be a litany of problems along those things. And Member Wallace talks about cost recovery. Of course, I think $100 versus $50. I don't know how much cost recovery we're getting, but that being said, it is something. And I think just streamlining across the board makes licensing life easier. It makes sense. I agree with it.
Great, thank you. Well, unless there's any other comments, John, if you'd like to lead us in the vote?
Certainly. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Member Califano would second.
Thank you very much. And we'll take a roll call vote to approve this. Member Absalom,
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Carr,
Member Carr, aye.
Member Califano,
Member Califano, aye.
Member Roberts,
Member Roberts, aye.
and Member Wallace.
Member Wallace, aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes 5-0, but certainly like Council Witt mentioned, it's will be going forth towards City Council.
Thank you. The last agenda item for this section is 8C, which is updates to petitions. So this is actually something that we had included in the agenda for the BLA retreat, but we didn't actually get to have a discussion on this. And the background here is we've heard from different BLA members that maybe you all have ideas about ways that you would like to see our petition materials changed or updated. So we just wanted to provide an opportunity to have that discussion and discuss any proposed changes to the petition materials at the hearing today. Does anyone have any changes that they would like to propose?
I would defer to Member Wallace in the sense that I feel that we are having a question about how the questions are raised and in terms of how there can be leading questions. I guess that was the only thing that I know there's a specific thing in our form. How do we protect against leading people into making a decision based on, I mean, I worked in politics for a long time. I know how this goes. How would you approach this, Steve?
Well, it's difficult because you can have the same exact thing stated in one way, the exact same way, and it all depends on the inference. I mean, if you can say, well, they're planning on opening up a restaurant and they're planning on serving some alcohol and this is how they're planning to do it, and then they're going to open up a restaurant and they're going to have alcohol there. I mean, it's really hard to craft that as an authority on how we make sure that the true message is getting across to the neighborhoods whose requests, whose needs and desires are penultimate in creating a new license. And I don't have any suggestions. I really don't, because as I said, it's, we can read it, we can see the way it's written and how it could be abused, the way it's written. And I think we have the ultimate authority to accept or deny that the way after at the end of it, as proof of needs and desires for the neighborhood. Now, I was disappointed once a couple months ago when I saw what had happened, because the person who did that survey had done so many great surveys before, and then all of a sudden, the neighborhood, which could see the licensed establishment from their houses, weren't surveyed at all, or she said they were surveyed and nobody answered. I was skeptical, and I'm hopefully got the message across to her that coming forward again, she needs to make sure that she's not just done the easiest part of a neighborhood that we did, because remember, her costs are recovered based on the amount of time that her surveyors go out and spend. And it's going to take them a lot less time to go to the neighborhood that has multiple unit dwellings and get everybody's signature there. And so she pays the hourly wage to the surveyor, which isn't very significant, and she gets a flat fee from based on a number of total survey stops from the licensee, which the greater the difference between the two, the greater income that she makes off, or they make off of the survey. So I guess just keeping an eye, and I won't be here for going forward, and keeping an eye and making sure that everybody who needs to have been heard from, i.e. the needs and desires of the neighborhood, has had an opportunity to at least be included in the survey. And that was my main thing. And it's been even worse over the years with Max. Is again, remember, the faster that they can get the survey done, the more money the survey company makes. Whether they're and this idea that they're not guaranteed an outcome doesn't hold any weight for me, because that one argument there that it only took us I only had to pay someone 5 total hours to do the survey because they chose the part of the town that had multiple unit dwellings in it, and even though that was maybe 1/10 or even 20% of the total designated neighborhood that we chose. So that's an exponential discussion of what I feel.
Right, I agree. I agree that it's an exponential discussion, but I think it's something that this authority really needs to have a deeper look at as to how this works. There's federal guidelines, I believe, if we're going to go into the law, and Ms. Witt can maybe comment to this about how political speech is because essentially it is political speech. You might be referencing the case at the res, but that case specifically, it felt like there were not coercion, but to what point are we getting real information from these neighborhoods? And obviously we trust the surveyors to follow procedure and follow our rules as well. But I'm just wondering, to what extent can we get more real data in a neighborhood? Because
with that particular licensee, they hired a surveyor who actually said, I didn't survey that neighborhood because they'd already been surveyed and they were in favor of it. And so
sure.
I thought to myself, well, then did you really, I mean, you chose which neighborhoods to possibly go to and which ones to avoid based on what you thought, you know, I mean, we should say petitioner because they're not surveys. Is it where you could get the best results for your petition, even though her petition results aren't guaranteed. But she absolutely dropped the ball when she said, I didn't survey the largest residential portion of the designated neighborhood because it was clear that they were opposed to it.
To get a petition for a ballot issue, what is the rule in the state of Colorado? I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, it's a percentage of and it depends on jurisdiction. The city of Boulder has a different rule than the state of Colorado, and so I don't know what the state's rule is. I know that we recently voted to change it to make it more difficult to get it on the ballot. That was either 2 years ago or 4 years ago or something like that.
Well, we'll let our attorney, or our attorney can speak to that. I'm
there
sure.
we go, Kristen.
Yeah. What you're talking about with it getting harder was for constitutional amendments statewide. It went from 50% to 55% as far as voting, and then there was also some changes to the petition process. But it has to do, it's a percentage with the number of voters who voted in the last election. And I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's a certain percentage.
What's the rule around? What's the rule around getting a ballot amendment, you know, put on the ballot in terms of how you petition for that? Are we following those same exact rules?
It's a little bit more, we're not. It's a little bit more restrictive for ballot initiatives. So one of the differences, the only people who are in favor of it sign it, right? Because you're trying to get to a certain percentage of people signing in order to get it on the ballot. So we get the yes and no's. So that's a little bit different. There's a lot of rules around what the front cover page looks like, how the language is written, things like that. And there's also rules around the petitioners themselves. They have to be 18, which I think ours is similar. Maybe ours is 21. I haven't looked at that rule in a little bit, but there's certain rules around the people who are actually going around and signing it. They have to sign an affidavit that says, hey, we will uphold what this says. We're going to say the right language. And then there's the cover sheet that they have on the front. So it's somewhat similar, but it's a little bit more restrictive for ballot measures.
I wonder if, according like along Mike's comment, maybe there's some way in which the municipal election is required to craft the language on the front of the petition that we could adopt. I don't recall. I can't recall having signed a petition for the city of Boulder.
Yeah, there's certain, like, you have to phrase in the form of a question. There's certain like requirements. I could during the next BLA hearing bring the example and do like a comparison of what's different. So that would be helpful.
Because
I think that'd be helpful. I think right now around our petitioning, we're finding in specific cases, of course, that there is some disparity in terms of how we're getting the data that we're seeing. As you know, as the authority that we are, we put a lot of weight into those petitions, you know, and
let me say something, Mike. It was something it was a generation ago that I looked into with regards to what a liquor authority can do and can't do with regards to making a decision based on materials presented by the license, the applicant for a license, and we are somewhat hidebound by case law. But if in fact there is a petition or that is presented to us, and there is someone in front of us testifying, we can absolutely give more weight to the testimony, regardless of how many people signed a petition, and be upheld in appeal.
right about our cross-examination of how that petition was held and the manner in which it was done, is what you're saying, right?
No, we can just, as members, decide for ourselves that we are going to give more weight to the testimony because it persuaded us more than the petition did.
Certainly, but I think ultimately I'd like to have something personally, just after being a part of this process so many times, is, you know, having something more conditioned to a specific standard we can hold someone to how they petition. And that was my point on that. And that was something I was unfortunate that I couldn't make the retreat to talk about that, but that was something I really felt strongly about.
Right.
But I mean, it's not, I think to your point, Steve, we, you know, obviously we can take any testimony outside of petition to make, you know, that is the authority that we hold. But I thought the goal behind it was essentially to come up with a better way for there to be a streamlined situation where people are going door to door, asking the same questions, and somehow having a way to protect, you know, anything that's coming from those neighborhoods from being coerced in a way, which is, I think, to the point of when you sign the whole way that we do amendment ballots and stuff like that, that's a little bit more legal. But it was just something I wanted to bring that I didn't have a chance to talk to you about. You know, we have the full authority here today, and I know Matthew, member Califano, has seen these many times, and there's a lot around it. You know, there's a lot around how questioning goes on and who's doing the petitioning. So just something I wanted to put on the books and say on the record that I think we can maybe have a better way, or maybe a way to hold people to a standard of how we actually do go door to door and find out those needs and desires of a neighborhood.
I don't disagree, and I think maybe it's been suggested that we could go through and take a look at how the city does it with their ballot measures, and maybe there's something there we could adopt.
I would agree with that. If Laurel, we could see those at the next hearing, I think that would be really beneficial.
Yeah, and perhaps Kristen, I can just bring it underneath my item. I may also reach out to some nearby cities to see if there's anything they do differently. Maybe there's some other ideas out there.
It's interesting because some jurisdictions actually do the survey themselves and then charge the applicant.
I think that's cost analysis. What are we doing here to manage costs? That's important, right? We have to charge.
No, they charge the applicant to do it.
Yeah, I know that's ridiculous.
I think it's Westminster, closest one to it. Westminster.
Well, I thank you for allowing me to say that. I didn't have a chance to talk about that. That was kind of my biggest item in the retreat that I missed, and I'm glad we're streamlining a little bit more. I'd hate to get into another one of these show cause hearings where we're sitting here talking about how petitions had happened, when we could potentially have a better system for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to bring some thoughts forward and comparisons so you guys can take a look at that.
So it kind of sounds like we're continuing this item on to next month. Is that what I'm hearing?
That sounds right to me. I mean, I'm willing to hear from, Member Roberts, Member Carr about their thoughts on this. I know that you're newer to the process, but if you wanted to lean in on this, I think the more information we can gather for our next hearing, we can come up with a motion for rules and how we petition the neighborhoods. Because the needs and desires component is huge. It's what, it's a huge part of how we deliberate over if a liquor license should be established in that specific neighborhood.
Yeah, that was yeah, really interesting to understand that we don't really have any I don't know, like a specific process in place. It's kind of up to, there's like a framework for what has to happen, but it doesn't seem like there are specific things that have to happen during that petitioning process. And so I think if we had more, like if it was a more stringent process, we would have more confidence that the answers that we were getting were accurate and did reflect the needs and desires of that neighborhood.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was kind of more up to the petitioner to do that research. So I think.
Well, the city has a form, if you've seen the form, of course, I think that was the discussion we were talking about, but I think it's good to just dive a little deeper.
One thing that I recall, and then I was a part of, I was not on the liquor board at the time, but I was part. We had multiple days hearing about a license when the Rio moved from its one location on Pearl Street to the other location on Pearl Street. And we actually ended up having 1/3 of the affected neighborhood show up to testify in opposition to it. But there was a survey that was overwhelmingly in favor. So it's not something that really I think we have the ability to artcraft to the point of actually getting a good understanding of how it reflects the feelings of the neighborhood.
All right, so Kristen, are we good to further discuss at the next hearing?
Absolutely. We'll put this on the agenda for the March hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's everything I had for agenda item 8.
Thank you very much. Continuing with agenda item number 9 is matters from the Assistant City Attorney.
So during our retreat, I had a presentation just to give a short refresher on conflicts as well as, or conflict of interest as well as ethics, and just a short refresher on motions as well. And so we ran out of time at the hearing or at the retreat, so I thought I would go over that today. If the board would like that, I can also do it another day, but that was kind of what's on the agenda as far as crossing that off. So if you would like me to proceed, I can share my screen and just run through these slides.
Yeah, go ahead, please proceed.
Right. Let's see. You think I would know how to do this? Okay. Share screen. Okay. So can you guys see my screen now? Looks like a slide or PowerPoint. Yes, okay. I see you're nodding, sorry. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and start this. And we'll just do a short conflict of interest. I'm gonna shut my door because my dog is barking, so give me 1 second. Okay, apologies for that. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a quick run through of conflicts of interest to start out. So the first question is just like, why does this matter? Why do we care about conflicts of interest? And one of the biggest things for us here at the City of Boulder is to maintain integrity in the process. So we really want to make sure that if there is any sort of conflict, and I'm going to run through what some examples of conflicts are, that we either abstain or let the board know of those conflicts. We saw that happen earlier in this process. And so one of the things that member Absalom did this morning was email and ask, like, hey, can we talk about this? And I encourage that if you guys ever need to have a conversation about this could be a potential conflict, I don't really know, or hey, there's been some past things here, can we talk about it? I'm absolutely happy to take a call at any time to talk about whatever those issues are, but we just are trying to maintain integrity in this process and to make sure that our hearings are held in a manner that supports the licensees in the city of Boulder and continues to give our board the elevated status it has of just being a board that follows rules and does a really great job. Just so you know, and if you ever keep these slides, the code of conduct section in our code. So this is the Boulder Revised Code. That's what BRC stands for. It's Title 7, Chapter 2. If you type in Boulder Municipal Code into Google, it'll pop up and you can find this. Okay, so I'm just going to go through some of the things that are conflicts of interest in our code. There are things outside of this that you may have. Your situation may not fall perfectly in here, and that is completely fine. That's going to happen. And if that's the case, go ahead and call me and we can talk about it. Again, it's always good to know in advance of a hearing if you're going to potentially have a conflict. And sometimes with these conflicts, I will ask questions during a hearing to say whether or not you do have a conflict. Sometimes I recommend just recusing yourself based on the conflict. So in here, one of the main prohibited acts is this idea of personal benefit. Also, please feel free to interrupt me if you have questions. I can't see everybody, so I won't see your raised hand. Just interrupt me and I'd be happy to answer questions. So in here in BRC code 272, we have this idea of a personal benefit. And that's this idea if you are given some sort of personal benefit by awarding a license or by not shutting down a license, for example, a licensed establishment, if there's some sort of personal benefit to you, then we would ask you to recuse yourself. For example, I'm going to use Member Absalom again. Sorry about that. Member Absalom being part of the Southern Sun Mountain Sun organization. If one of those restaurants came before us, either for a license, for a show cause, for anything like that, because he does have a personal benefit to that, we would ask him to recuse. So this is the information on that. It's particularly pertinent with financial gain. As opposed to like political gain or anything like that. But we're talking about money, you know, if you have a stake in some sort of licensed establishment. One thing to be of note, and this is something that's come up on other boards, this isn't like a general, like you work for a liquor license establishment and a liquor license is given out. This wouldn't affect you. It's a particular establishment that's giving you that financial gain. So any sort of like generalized, oh, the whole community gets benefits from this, that doesn't matter. It's more the specific financial gain. The next one that's mentioned in our code is 273, and this is the idea of duty to maintain the confidentiality of privileged information. So one of the things that could happen, this doesn't happen a lot with liquor licensing, but say you have privileged information or confidential information, you wouldn't want to disclose that in order to continue forward with this sort of voting on the record. This is particularly important when we get to quasi-judicial, like if you have information before we get to a quasi-judicial hearing, such as a show cause, and I'll explain what quasi-judicial is in a minute. But this idea of if you come before it and you have this confidential information, say again, sorry, Member Absalom, if Member Absalom has detailed information about Southern Sun, he also has financial gain, like this, it's another reason to not be allowed to participate, to recuse yourself. So again, this is just kind of like duty to disclose confidential information. We don't want to have any sort of hearing where you feel like you have to give up that information. It also creates this view of the BLA, like, oh, maybe they're hiding things, maybe they're not giving everything out to the public, and we want to be an open and public board as much as we possibly can. The next one here is gifts. So gifts are prohibited. I keep saying public official. Since you are a member of a board or commission, you are technically a public official. I, as a public employee, am also required to follow these along with Kristen and John. So this is just because you're a public official, you have to follow this in relation to your voting on the board. So gifts prohibited. So say, for example, a licensed establishment says, hey, if you vote in favor for our liquor license renewal, or if you vote against a show cause or anything like that, we will give you free dinner. Or we will, I don't know, give you a part of our business, whatever it is. We have to say no to that. We don't allow this like gift exchange. And again, it's kind of looks like bribery. It's not something we want the government to have, right? We want it to be public and open, and for all of you guys to be above that kind of look of bribery. So we there's a code ordinance that says, hey, you can't take gifts in exchange for something for that licensee. Okay, this is a lot of words on the screen. I'm just going to tell you, this is the idea of if you are a former or current employee of an organization that is before the board, just let me know. We'll talk about it. A lot of times, just like member Absalom with Southern Sun, we can't have this idea of an employee voting on a license for that business, but it also kind of extends into former employment as well. So if there's ever an issue where you're like, hey, my former employment is doing this, then we can talk about it, talk through it. But just so you know, that's out there, prior employment as well as current employment. Okay, and then the most important part of all of this, it's all very important to maintain our credibility as a board. One of the things that's really important is this idea of ex parte communications in a quasi-judicial hearing. So quasi-judicial, what does that mean? It's actually a lot of what you do when you set up these hearings to give a license or do a show cause. And the idea here, sorry, not to give a license, to do a show cause. And the idea here is when you're acting as a judge. So it's not when you're giving out a license, it's when you're doing such a show cause. And the idea here is you're acting as like a judge in a court. So you have both sides coming forward. You have the city saying these are the things that were done. A prosecutor come forward saying like they served under 21. You have the applicant defending themselves, and you are acting as a sort of judge. So a quasi-judge is the idea, in order to decide whether or not that person should have a suspension or a revoked license. Ex parte communications are not allowed in these proceedings, and an ex parte communication, this idea of ex parte is talking to people outside of the actual quote unquote trial, of the show cause hearing or other hearing that's similar to that. If you get information, say in an email in advance, and I've had this happen a couple of times, if you get information in an email in advance, or somebody comes up to you on the street and says, hey, you're on the board, you're going to vote on my show cause, we don't want that kind of behavior, or not the behavior, we don't want that kind of communication. Because again, the idea here is to try and maintain integrity in the process. And the process here being you're presented the evidence and you decide. And the evidence that you're presented should be public. It should be something that's happening in this hearing. It's not something we want to have happen behind closed doors. Again, we're trying to create this integrity to make sure that every licensee has a fair opportunity to be heard on the record. So that's ex parte communications. You can see the code down below kind of explains the language there. But the idea here is in quasi-judicial hearings, we're extra careful about licensees' rights. So just wanted to remind you guys that if you ever feel like you have an ex parte communication, again, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Kristen or any of the staff, and we will help you and work through that. We just want to make sure that, again, there's integrity in the process, that there's a lot of communication there. Sometimes, for example, somebody will send an email and you'll send it to us. We may include it in the packet or make sure that everybody knows what was said, because we want it to be clear and explained to everybody. Does anyone have any questions on the first few slides? I didn't see any raised hands. Okay. Thank you, Member Califano, for shaking your head. I saw you. Okay, so this is just a couple of questions I thought would be helpful that have come up while I've been advising the board, and I just thought it would be helpful to go through these. So one of the things is, what if I live in the designated neighborhood boundary for an applicant? Is that a conflict of interest? Not ex parte, we're just talking about conflict of interest here. That is not a conflict of interest unless, again, you have one of those more like larger ties. So because a restaurant in your neighborhood is coming in, it's influencing you as a group of people instead of you individually. But if it impacts you individually, say financially, or there's a gift situation or whatever, that's when it becomes a conflict of interest. It is okay if you disclose it. If you say like, hey, I live in the neighborhood boundary, just so you guys know. It's probably better to not sign a petition since you'll be weighing in on that. But you, just because you live in the neighborhood boundary doesn't mean that you can't vote in that situation. And then we talked about this briefly, but what if I am employed or was employed by an applicant? That's usually a reason to recuse yourself. And we can talk about it again. It depends, how long it's been, what sort of situation it is. If you're currently employed, just assume that you will recuse yourself from that particular application. And then the last question here is, what happens if I think there could be a conflict of interest, or I've heard ex parte communications with an applicant before a quasi-judicial hearing? Again, reach out to me, reach out to Kristen, whoever you feel responsible for. Do not send a group email to everybody. Just send it to the staff directly. And we kind of mentioned this a little bit, but group emails, if you send a group email to every board member, that creates a technical meeting, which needs to be noticed for the public to be involved in. And we don't want to get into that. We try to only have public meetings in this kind of situation like we have here, where the public can join, they can listen in, they can provide public comment. So if you do have a question, feel free again to email the attorney, me, or anybody else involved. And then just a really quick refresher on motions. I know we have a couple of new members. I thought it would be helpful just to talk about this because I know it can be kind of nerve-wracking when you first join a board and people are throwing up motions and saying yes, second, whatever. But I thought I would just give a very quick one slide refresher on this. And again, you can ask in the middle of the meeting, hey, Laurel, like, can I do this? And I'm happy to respond. So here's the basic procedure here. Once a matter is closed for deliberation by the chair, discussion of the evidence may occur between authority members and motions can be brought. And Chair Calfano did this great. He's like, do we have any discussion or any motions? And then you can go ahead and move forward. There'll be a main motion and then a seconding. If you decide after the main motion that you want to change the motion, say somebody says, well, what about this? What if we want to add this condition? You can do that. If that occurs after the seconding of the motion, you need to vote on the motion before you can change it. So you'd have to vote, turn it down, go back to the main motion and change it. So again, main motion, second motion. Often there's discussion after seconding the motion. Here at the authority, we do a lot of discussing before we do motions. So either way is fine. It helps to do it, either before you start a motion or after you second the motion, just kind of talk about it. And then the vote, one of the biggest things that I think is easy to forget is to make sure you verbally say your name and the vote for the record. This is because even though we're videoing it, there's also an auditory record that we keep. So just so you know, even though there's a video, make sure you say yes with your name. And then of course the chair announces the results for the record. Or sometimes like John or the staff members will do that too. And that I think is all I had for this. Yep, okay. I did that really quickly. So if you guys have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to ask me.
Bravo, you did a good job.
That was really helpful. And since we have some new members joining soon, maybe can you like email that to them? That would have been really nice to have before my first.
I thought about that. I was like, what do the new members need? Yeah, definitely send that along. Yeah. And I have some other like presentations on a variety of topics. So if there's anything else you have questions about, I'm sure I have some notes on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say thank you again to Laurel. I called her today about something that was really unique. It actually happened before. It was Veronique, was actually our attorney at the time when I had something going on with that particular licensee. And I would say that to new members is just call Laurel. Any questions?
Yeah, you're always welcome to call me or Kristen and John and anybody else on staff too. If you have any questions, we're here to support you. Yeah.
I generally follow a rule of thumb of out of an abundance of caution, I'll recuse myself if I have any doubts, just to not allow for any possible bias.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only place that gets a little bit sticky is if you have not a full quorum without you. And if that happens, we could talk through it. We may have to postpone something till the next meeting. Yeah.
Have you gone over this with the city council?
Actually, my boss, Teresa Tate, is going to be going over this with city council more in depth than I just did.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That was really helpful. I have as a refresher.
Good, I'm glad. Yeah, and if you have more questions about it or if you need more or a written version, I'm happy to send that.
Steve, when are you running for city council?
What do I look like, an idiot? I've never run it for city council. Oh God, I've got a life.
Oh, John, I think you might be muted or your mic's not working.
Is that better? Great. Okay. I just love to be able to bring up something that I asked Laurel today, and just it's a rarity, but sometimes it happens. But like if multiple people are recusing themselves, it has to be a minimum of 3 for a quorum, and it must be unanimous. So when you make a decision for it to pass or everything. So just as an FYI for new members too.
That's why we always ask like who's coming to the meeting, because if it's less than 3, then we have to cancel. So for quorum purposes.
And I would say too, that if it's only 3 you may, or and you would, well, actually, if it's 4 and it's anyway, I wouldn't be shy about moving agenda items to the next month when there's a quorum that can hear it, because that's always a better way to go than to try to risk skirting the boundaries of propriety.
Well, thank you again, Laurel.
Yeah, happy to help. Yeah, and if we ever get close to a quorum and there's questions about that, we're happy to answer questions about it and move agenda items and whatever we need to.
Oh, great. So to continue on, we have agenda item number 10, which is matters from the licensing clerk. And everything that is in sections A through E has been included in your packet if necessary. Is there any questions in regards to the special event permits or the renewals that were included in the packet? Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I believe, Kristen, you had something that you wished to mention. So.
Thanks, John. I just wanted to provide a quick update on board recruitment for BLA. We did not receive any applicants for this board, unfortunately. So what's going to happen is we will recruit again during the mid-year recruitment, which will begin in maybe April or May. So if you know anyone that might be interested, please send them our way. We'd love to talk to them about potentially recruiting them for this board. Until then, Member Wallace, your term does expire at the end of March. So we will be with only 4 members in between Member Wallace's expiration and the board recruitment. So
you don't have to word it that way, my expiration.
I'm so sorry.
Your term,
the
term.
How many expirations is this for you, Steve? I think you've been on this board. You've retired several times.
This will be my 4th, and I'm only here for Kevin. So it's Kevin's last portion of it.
Yes, and I wanted to put it on the record that I wanted to say nothing but thanks and gratitude for Member Wallace for stepping up in this time of tragedy. We lost the board member to the fatal shooting, and the graciousness that you've done it with, and stepping up for our community. Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.
I wanted to do something for Kevin. I didn't know.
You did a lot. You've done a lot. You've done so much for this community, but thank you for this one. This was a big one. So thank you.
I would echo Member Absalom's comments. Also, how come when my term's up, I'm always interviewing with other people? Like everyone applies when my term's up. Like, when I first came on, I had to interview in front of I think there were 3 other candidates. This last time there was one other candidate. So
I mean, I wonder if everyone just wants your seat. I don't know, Matt. Well, I can speak to this too. I didn't want to take a role in chair or vice chair because I'm leaving the Mountain Sun Pubs and Breweries here in the spring. But I will, and city staff has reached out to me. If I am still a member of this community and I have a residence here in the city of Boulder, I will continue my service to the BLA until that time expires. So I will be on this board until I no longer legally can be if I leave the jurisdiction. So I'll be here.
So only if you leave the jurisdiction. Yep.
Yeah, you'll be the first one to call.
All right, thank you very, very much. Continuing with agenda item number 11 is matters from the chair and members of the authority.
I don't have anything. Does any of the other members? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Before we adjourn, I want to say something about Member Roberts, Member Carr, and say thank you. As you can see, it's hard to get people to join boards, and you have done so in service to your community. And a big thank you from your community at large for being a part of this. It's not easy, and Matthew and Stephen are great servants to our community. They've been doing it for a long time. So obviously, I'll give them thanks later, but you too, thank you so much for being a part of this. It means a lot. And then with that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Member Califano, aye.
Member Absalom, aye.
Member Wallace, aye.
Member Roberts, aye.
Member Carr, aye.
We are adjourned at 4:43.
And if I want to add something to the next agenda, if we go in alphabetical order for how we motion of things, I think Member Roberts brought it up. I love that idea because it gets a little during Zoom. Hopefully we get back in person. It makes it easier because you have human cues to do so. But we can put that in the agenda for next time. This is just chatting with you guys. I like saying, hey.
But that does bring the question, when are we going to get back to normal?
When are we? You guys were.
I think we revisit this in 2027, right?
I mean, I don't understand. The whole rest of the world has gone back to normal. Why isn't the city of Boulder?
Well, I think we're adjourned, so I think that we should.
No. This is informational question. It's not something that we're going to decide or do anything based on. I just wanted to find out when it is. I mean, even Denver does it in person now, so I don't know what the deal is. Is there an answer to that question?
You have to bring that up with your council person, I believe.
I have a council person?
Or people.
No,
Kristen, do you want me to answer?
Is that the reason? Is it because the council? I don't think so. Because I meet in person.
No, it's actually, so our clerk's office is the one in charge of setting up the rooms and allowing us to do in person. And so right now they're not allowing public to come in to any board and commission meeting because of the technology and staffing issues. So they're working on, and I don't know how long it'll be. I wish I had an answer for you for that. But they're working on getting the council chambers set up again to allow public to come in and for boards and commissions to use it. We're not the only board and commission that does, like the planning board, for example, also uses council chambers. And then the other meeting rooms that are available to us are too small for like the public to come join us. So we're on hold because of our internal processes.
So it's the clerk's office?
Mhm.
Okay.
You can call them.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. Hey, I just wanted to say before we get out of here, I hope we all got noticed that I was going to be a little bit late today. So yeah, thanks for all understanding and everything. Work has been